Welcome to Hangin' With. I'm GW Pomichter. Thanks for logging on and tuning in. If you haven't already, go on down there and hit subscribe. If this is your first time, thanks for being with us today. We want to start out by thanking our partners at Something Unique Magazine, Books, Chocolate, and Wine, the Florida Book News, and Authors for Authors. We are here today and we are hanging with author Jodie Cain Smith, the author of The Woods at Barlow Bend, published in 2014 by Deer Hawk Publishing. Is that right?
Yes.
Welcome, Jodie. Thanks for hanging with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk with you.
Oh, well, we're very excited to have you here. It's fantastic. And so now, The Woods at Barlow Bend, tell us a little bit about how you first started and how you got started writing this story.
Well, the story really started for me 20 years ago when I asked my grandmother, as this was when I was a junior in high school, and I had an assignment in my AP history class to find out what regular everyday life was like in Alabama during the Great Depression.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to my grandmother and asked her, and I was expecting to hear, a family struggle for food and clothes. And what I learned was of my great-grandmother's very mysterious death. Addie Andress, my great-grandmother, was killed in a very strange squirrel hunting incident. And my grandmother's father, Hubbard, Addie's husband, was tried for Addie's murder. And
I have to take a moment I got to wrap my head around the squirrel hunting accident.
Yes.
Apparently, and everybody knows hunting accidents happen.
Yes.
I have not actually ever heard of a squirrel hunting accident, so right away, I guess you've got an interesting premise, huh?
Yes. So, that was in researching and writing the book. I had to become basically an expert on squirrel hunting, and I've never gone hunting a day in my life. So that was some very interesting online reading. So,
Wow.
If you're interested in squirrel hunting blogs, they're out there.
There are squirrel hunting blogs.
Yes. I didn't know.
I didn't.
Something new all the time.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so Granny told me this story of her parents and all of the rumors that surrounded her parents' marriage, from going from a rather affluent family. They were living in rural Alabama, so as affluent as you can get in rural Alabama in the 1930s. But they weren't scraping by. They were very self-sufficient. Addie actually had her own car. Hubbard at the time owned a hotel along with the sales business. And so that's where I started with, was listening to her story. And then fast forward, 18, 19 years, and I am a military spouse living in Fort Hood, Texas, facing, I believe it was mine and Jay's 9th cross-country move. So that meant 9th time I would resign from a job and start over, and I was sick and tired of doing that. And I needed to take control of my life. And that summer, as we prepared for this move, and Jay was deployed to Iraq at the time, I could not get the story of my grandmother's parents out of my head. Wow. And decided I'm going to do what is probably the craziest thing I've done in my life so far, which is, yes, I'm going to resign my position because we're moving across the country, but I'm not going to seek regular employment. I'm going to give it a year and really research this story, write this story, and see what comes of it. And at the end of that year, I actually had a manuscript, and one that I was really excited about. I was surprised that the manuscript ended up being far more than I thought it was going to be. A murder mystery, honestly. Okay. And it ended up being a coming-of-age story of my grandmother wrapped in this murder trial. So
that is just amazing.
I was really excited.
That is great, and what an amazing inspiration for your first story. It's just a great place to start. Now, you were an Army wife. and you were traveling around a lot with your husband. And thank you for your service, by the way. As an old Army infantryman, the wives are every bit as important as every soldier that's out there. So thank you for
You're
that.
I
And
guess.
please thank your husband for his
I will.
service. Tell him an old infantryman said thank you.
I'll
And
tell
so you
my
also
my husband is an on-rail tanker. So
oh my, outstanding, good stuff. Well, that is extraordinary, and I understand early on as you got started writing, you actually contributed a little bit for Chicken Soup for the Military Soul. I
yes,
understand.
when the Iraq War first broke out in 2003, I was living in Savannah, Georgia. Jay was deployed to what we thought was just going to be a training mission in Kuwait in 2003, and that turned into Third ID invading Iraq. And so I was losing my mind just a little. And I was working for a company called Puppet People. They do entertainment for corporate events using puppets. I was a theater major in college. So
I actually understand that you were a professional actress at the Trust Us Theater.
yes, here in South Carolina. It's a
Wow.
great theater.
Wow.
Absolutely wonderful. So in 2003, I would drive to work every day and pass all of the Iraq War protesters, and they were getting a lot of news coverage. But what I wasn't seeing in the paper was anything from the family's point of view, because we were all terrified. We never thought that our men and women would be involved in a ground war, and that just seemed crazy. And I'm like, how do you take tanks down the street in Baghdad? That's insane. So I kept watching these protesters, and one actually stepped in front of my car one day. And I hit the brake. I did not hit him. I hit the brake and
I applaud your discipline.
I sat there for a few seconds. I was in downtown Savannah, and when I restarted my car, before I knew it, I was parked in front of the Savannah Morning News and stormed into the Savannah Morning News, which is a newspaper in Savannah, and demanded to the first man I saw that someone tell the family stories and someone has to write for the families. And he looked at me and he said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, fine, I will. And I went home, and then I thought, what did I just get myself into? He wanted 3 column samples within the week. By the way, he was the sports editor. And I had no writing experience at this time.
Wow.
I was strictly an actress and a designer, no writing experience. So for the next year, I wrote the column Married to the Military, which my husband did not know about or read a word of until he got home. And he was like, our life is on display. And I was like, yeah, sorry about that. But Chicken Soup for the Soul ended up, through another author friend of mine, picking up one of the columns. And the column that they picked up was about the first time after Jay was in Iraq for a couple of months, the first time he was actually able to call home, and hearing his voice after not speaking to him or hearing, emails or anything like that for him for so many weeks. It was a surreal time in my life, and I'm really happy and proud that I was able to capture that part of the Army wife experience for all of us and contribute to that.
That's extraordinary. It really is. That is a reminder to all of you out there, do not get in the way of a military spouse. When they want something, they are going to get it.
Yeah, I read something today that said we are called military dependents, but we are very independent.
Very much so. And you really
I think that
sound
really sums up my experience.
well, that is fantastic. And you are a wealth of just fascinating stories. This is your first book.
Yes.
And you've been an author since 2014, and you've been, working to sell books and meet readers. And so I wanted to ask you, as a first-time author and a new author, what are some of the most interesting or or rewarding experiences that you've had now that you've kind of entered the community of authors?
Well, the probably the most rewarding part of releasing Barlow Bend is a very personal one, and it is the connection and reconnection I've had with family members.
Wow.
To where we're, because Granny died in 1996. She was a huge loss to my entire family, both immediate and extended. And we miss her dearly. And so having the chance to share her story, even though the book is listed as fiction, it is listed as fiction because I had to invent the conversations.
Yes.
But all of the events in the book are true. And I was able to verify everything Granny had told me through research. So to actually be able to have her story on a shelf, and knowing that my grandmother was such an avid reader, she would go through a stack of mystery novels and romance novels every week from the bookmobile in Daphne, Alabama.
Wow.
So to be able to say, hey, Granny, you're the lead in your own book now.
That has got to be amazing. Yeah.
That is really rewarding, seeing what it's done for my mom and my aunts and cousins. And I mean, they came out of the woodwork for the book launch. It was so exciting to see all of them. As a former military member, you don't get many chances to see
That's true.
everybody. So
Yeah.
that was extremely rewarding. The coolest thing I do as an author, honestly, is Skype with book club.
Wow.
I love to. Because there is no, and it's usually all women, but there is nothing better than after they've been drinking the Chardonnay for a couple of hours to then appear in their living room and just chat with them for a while, because there have been some hilarious conversations that have come out of those Skype chats. So I love doing that. And
Now,
I
what
didn't
has
really
what has reader response been to the book? Is it it's been really well received, and how are the readers taking the book?
Readers seem to really love it. I'm very excited because I've got a lot of online reviews for it, at least for my interpretation. I think I have a lot of online reviews. And
Every author knows how hard it is just to get the first review, so anything more than that is a lot of reviews. And
well, the simple fact that complete strangers will take time after reading a book to then go and post online what they think of it,
yes.
especially when there's not a whole bunch of haters and internet trolls and everything. It's people honestly saying, this is what I thought of this book, and I really enjoyed it. A large number of men, which I
Wonderful.
never knew that men would like reading a book that is from the voice of a 14-year-old girl. Who knew? But they love it. So I'm thrilled with how readers are taking it, especially since, like I said, I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I started writing this. And so I did my research, and I did a lot of research in creative writing and then research in the publishing industry of how to do that. So each step I was really having to teach myself and seek out subject matter experts and things like that, because I didn't have the benefit of a creative writing degree or an MFA program or something like that. So I'm thrilled with every review that comes in. I get so excited that somebody actually bought and read the book.
I don't think there's anything greater than having that feedback from a reader. Aside from, I know, and I've had a handful of email exchanges and Facebook messages, etc., with readers, which are kind of fun. But before I had ever had any interactions myself, a dear friend of mine is an author, and I remember the first time she got a message from a reader who just sent her sought her out on Facebook, sent her a message, praising her story and just telling her that that she enjoyed it, and the personal interaction that first time. It's just irreplaceable, the feeling that you get. And I got a phone call saying, I just got a message from a reader. And I'm like, okay, like one you didn't know? And she's like, yes. And it was amazing. And it was crazy. So it's an amazing thing when you get that kind of feedback. And I'm very, very happy that the book is being so well received. It's a fascinating subject, and it sounds like a passion project. And
it has been.
Those are
My
best
next
kind.
is definitely a passion project also. I don't know how to write without kind of just splaying myself open. And I mean, that's the only, and and I have to admit it is a bit therapeutic for me. I've probably saved myself thousands of hours of angst with a therapist over the last crazy 15 years. So when I get to put that emotion down on a page and give it to my characters, I love that. And it brings me back to my storytelling roots of being an actress and being a storyteller, to be able to come up with my own stories and invent character after character. It's so fun. And so then when someone actually puts a value, not only a monetary value, but a time value to your work, that they actually take the time to read your work. I'm like, that's amazing that people will do that. And I feel very fortunate that people have discovered Barlow Bend and that they spend their free time with me. That's crazy. I love
it. It's fantastic. And I love the way you put that. They spend their free time with you, not reading your book, not reading you, with you, because that's a very personal journey for you, and you can feel that when you talk to you about it. Now I understand that actually our next question was actually, so they pulled up a card for me. The next question was actually ongoing projects. I understand your second book, Jubilee Bells.
Yeah. Jubilee Bells
is coming out in 2016. Is that right?
Is no later than January 2017.
Okay.
Through Deer Hawk Publications. Wonderful. Again, represented by Jeannie Lociano of the, I just completely messed up her name, Locono of LLA Literary Agency. She and Aurelia Sands from Deer Hawk are trying to get the book out as quickly as possible. But sometime over the next year. And it is set in Mobile, Alabama, in the little fishing community that I grew up in, which is called Bell Fountain, Alabama. It's down at the very bottom of the state. And it is completely fictional. It's been a great place for me to put some of my tension and angst over the last couple of years. But I was on I grew up on Mobile Bay, and I was out kayaking with my dad one morning a couple of years ago, and we were going through the marshland in Mobile Bay, and I thought to myself, I have to write something that is set here. This is too cool of a setting to be snaking through the tall grass looking for alligators and the birds and the owl that hunts back there and everything. I was like, this is too cool. So a couple of weeks later, I started really asking myself, I started writing Jubilee Bells in 2013, I believe. And I started asking myself, what would happen if an insurgency war such as the Iraq War was fought on American soil?
Wow.
How would we react to American tanks coming down our own streets?
Wow.
And how would we react to the militia groups rising up? And that's where Jubilee Bells came out of. It follows the story of a young Army widow, Gold Star wife named Jules Jones, who has to retreat home when this insurgency war breaks out. So she retreats home along with her siblings, and they all turn the family house into a bit of a compound, and then find themselves stuck in between the Army, which has imposed martial law, and the militia groups, which are trying to claim territory and get the Army out of Bell Fountain.
Wow.
And so combines all that stuff together, and some good emotion and fears, and then elation, and I love it. So
That sounds amazing. Without ever seeing a book cover, that just made my 2017 reading list because
oh,
that
good. Yay.
sounds amazing. It does. It is. That sounds fantastic, and I'm in awe. You just kind of spewed that out into the world, and I'm like, wow. You
Well,
know.
I hate to admit this, but every time something crazy happens on the news, I'm like, whoa, 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 not yet.
Not yet. No.
Not
Not
until
yet. No.
after
Not
Jubilee Bells,
yet. Give me a
please.
break. No. 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 Wait.
But
Wait. You'd be better off with some of the crazy stuff that happens if it happened now, so you don't get blamed for it later.
no, I found myself, one of the books I read as research for Jubilee Bells is a book called Terror on the Plains, which is about the militia movement in the United States. And stupid me, I realized in the middle of the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, probably sitting right under a security camera, that I'm sitting there reading the chapter on basically how to make a bomb.
Wow.
And I was like, are you kidding me, Jodie? Use your brain. And so I slowly shut the book and put it in my carry-on. I was like, I'm not, I'm looking around like, don't worry about me.
I want to make it clear to the internet that Jodie is a fiction author
Yeah.
and is merely researching things. So knowing that my metadata is probably public, I want everybody to know Jodie's a fiction writer, and she's researching, and she's created an amazing world that I can't.
I hope people
That is a make you
enjoy
think.
Joel's
That is a
crazy
make you
life.
think story. That is a story that is going to make people think about the world they live in, about the country they live in, and you asked the simple question, what if?
Yeah.
Which is the ultimate question for an author, I think. But you put people in a position with the story outline that you laid out to ask, what if? To really dive into that world and to take sides and to consider sides, which is the ultimate goal of, I guess, a writer, is to make your reader walk away going, wow.
I hope so. The title Jubilee Bells comes from a phenomenon that only happens in Mobile Bay, and it's called a jubilee. And that's where so one of the theories behind what creates a jubilee is that the salinity levels in the water changes, and all of the sudden in one, and it's always different spots, but in any given spot of Mobile Bay, all of the sudden this happens, and all of the fish and the crab and the flounder and all of that, they rise to the top of the water and move inshore. And I mean by the thousands.
Wow.
And so you can just take a big net and they start moving very slowly as if they're lining up for suicide.
Huh.
And so you just take a big net and a tub and go out and scoop up a summer's full of fish in 1 hour. And it's this amazing social event in Mobile. And so if you're out on your pier and you discover a jubilee is happening, and you don't ring your bell at the end of the pier or contact all of your friends and neighbors and say there is a jubilee happening right now, then you could be exiled from the community. Sin is the ultimate act of selfishness, to not share what people view as an act of God. And it's like manna from heaven, but it's coming up from the sea. So that's where the title Jubilee Bells comes from, is this idea of community and telling your neighbors, warning your neighbors, waiting for divine intervention, free will. There's a lot of those themes that happen in Jubilee Bells. So I'm pretty
World
excited.
Wide Web, get ready. Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for Jodie Cain Smith anyway. I have a feeling that we are going to see a lot more of this author, and watch in 2016 or early 2017 for Jubilee Bells, because it sounds amazing, and it's going to make you think, and it's going to ask some really pressing questions. Now, I wanted to ask you, I know we have to get going here soon, but I wanted to ask you, is there any place where readers or fans or would-be fans can find you out there coming up? Are you going to any book signings? Are you going to be at any events? Where can viewers and readers and people find you?
Well, that is to be determined because Jay and I are preparing for yet another permanent change of station move. This time we're going to do it with a 10-month-old baby.
Wow.
So,
Your son is 10 months old.
yes.
The son in the pictures with you and your husband on on your website or
Yes.
social media. He
Yes.
is 10 months old.
Yes.
He is bigger than my 4-year-old. Y'all.
When that picture was taken, he was only 6 months old.
Wow. Wow.
This was an over 10-pound baby when he was born.
Wow. Oh my Lord.
Yes.
Wow.
So yes, I in 2014 I found out
You
I
just
was
made every woman behind the camera cringe. When you said 10-pound baby, you
Yeah.
made every woman behind the camera just they all. I have actually made that motion, I think, but it's usually during some kind of violence. So wow.
But big babies are happy babies. They sleep well. They're jovial. So I'm
Babies are
extremely
happy
blessed.
babies. You know that
I
certainly.
waited a long time to have a baby, so thank goodness he's a happy one.
Well, congratulations. This is
Thank
your
you.
first baby.
Oh, yeah.
Your first baby. And well, congratulations. You are in for one hell of a ride.
Yeah.
It is a blast. Congratulations there, Mom, on your
Thank-
books, on maternity, on your latest change of station. Now,
My life
how
is
long?
never
How long
boring.
have you guys? How long have you all been in?
Been in the military. As a married couple, 14 years.
Mhm.
Jay has been in the military, whether it was National Guard, ROTC, or once he took his commission, since 1994.
Wow.
So he's been in boots for a very long time.
Very long
I
time.
only signed up to do this thing in 2001. So it's been a very adventurous 14 years. And Bay, that's our son, named after Mobile Bay, because I was riding Jubilee Bells and homesick as anything while I was pregnant. So I named the kid after Mobile Bay. Poor kid. But yeah, he has made the adventure so much funnier. If readers want to know future events, I list everything on JodieCainSmith.com. And I post everything on my Facebook author page also, which is Jodie Cain Smith, author. So they can always find out any future events through that. And then I have an awesome team with Deerhawk and LLA, and they put out all of my events also.
Fantastic, great. Well,
So-
that is fantastic. Now we can find you online at JodieCainSmith.com.
Yes.
I know we can find your blog over at thequeendom.org.
Yes.
Yes.
The inner workings of my crazy mind.
And that about wraps us up. Again, I want to send a special thanks out to Something Unique Magazine and to Books, Chocolate, and Wine, Authors for Author, and the Florida Book News. All of these folks, by the way, have been great. They've been sharing our videos through their webs and their blogs and things like that. As we wrap up, I want everybody out there to go ahead and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Do it right now. Go ahead. Hey, do it now. Okay, good. Go down to our description to learn more about Jodie Cain Smith, her websites, her social media pages. We're going to link it all down there in the description. We're going to put some links down there to her book site, so you can go on over there and buy those books and become readers if you're not already. There's also a link down there for our Hangin' With store. Get some swag, get some t-shirts, ball caps, a teddy bear. My wife likes teddy bears. We have teddy bears. And it helps me to travel around and talk to authors, great authors like Jodie and others. It keeps the show going. I'm G.W. Pomichter. We've been hanging with Jodie Cain Smith, the author of The Woods at Barlow Bend, and coming in 2016 or 17 will be Jubilee Bells. That is set to be one of my favorite books. In advance, I'm going to tell you that it is. I love the premise,
That would be
and I
awesome.
can't wait to read that. So thank you again for hanging with us today. We've been hanging with Jodie Cain Smith. Subscribe, log on, tune in, and see who we're hanging with next.